My name is Megan and I am a Pony Club Centre coach based at Widbrook Equestrian Centre. Welcome to this mini-series in covering Pony Club achievement badges at Widbrook Equestrian Centre whilst we are in lockdown. Enjoy! Right, good morning Widbrook Pony Clubbers. So, as you know, we can't have our usual sessions at the moment, so I thought I'd just put together a couple of videos to cover one of the badges in the meantime. So we're going to have a look at the feeding badge. We'll cover the big badge and the mini badge, as the mini badge is part of the big badge. For those of you who've already done the feeding badge, it's a good time, one, to recap, and two, you're never done with learning feeding at every level, whether that's in the Pony Club or the British Horse Society exams. You're always going to be learning more about feeding. So it's good to make sure that we've got those basics in place and have a think about anything else that you might need to learn in feeding to get to that next level, anything that's not covered in the Pony Club badges. Okay, so we're going to start off with rules of good feeding. So we've covered this before. The Pony Club book, the manual that I've got here, Manual of Horsemanship, it's a bit battered, has got 9 rules of feeding. Some will give you 10 or 12 rules of feeding. I will pop those and a link to those in the description box, and I'll also include any other materials that you might need for this badge. But number 1 is clean, fresh water must be available at all times. So we know that our horse is approximately between 60 and 70% water. So it's really important that we make sure that clean, fresh water is available to them at all times to make sure they stay hydrated. The most important nutrient for the horse is the water. They can live longer without food than they can without water. That is their number 1 important nutrient. The horse, as a rough guide, will drink between 27 and 54 litres, that's approximately 6 to 12 gallons of water a day, but may need more in hot weather. Number 2, feed little and often. So we've discussed before, and I'll put a diagram up in the video as well, that the horse's stomach is approximately the size of a rugby ball. And you think the size of a horse, it's a very large animal, that's very small in comparison. So the horse is designed as a trickle feeder, so to have little and often, as we can see, as they're grazers and browsers, so they like to eat the grass, and they browse within the fields as well. So they're not designed to eat big meals, unlike us. Our stomachs are larger in comparison, and we're designed to eat meals, so we can eat bigger amounts in small amounts of time, whereas the horse is designed to be feeding pretty much most of the day. So the horse will eat between approximately 16 hours a day, and the capacity of the stomach is between about 8 and 14 litres, 1 to 3 gallons in capacity. Okay, so it's really important that the horse has a reasonably constant supply of food. So feeding ad lib, as it's known, unless your horse can't do that for whatever reason. So that's really important. Okay, number 3 is feed according to work, temperament and condition. So really important that we feed the horse according to how much work they're in, what their temperament is, the condition of the horse and how old they are. It all makes a difference. So older horses, for example, may not keep their condition on so well, so they may lose their condition. Horses that are more excitable probably will need less energy-giving feeds, whereas those that are more laid back might need a bit more energy-giving feed, or they might need less feed altogether if it's being laid down in more fat. So remember, energy and calories are the same thing. So if you feed more energy to a horse, it's either going to use it in terms of being exuberant, or it's going to just lay it down as fat. Also, in terms of the work done, so you want to feed the horse according to the work they've already done, not in anticipation of the work they're going to do. That's really important. You don't want to feed ahead, and you want to make sure that you're not feeding more than they need for the work. Quite often we think our horses are in more work than they actually are, and we overfeed them. And the problem with doing that is that then you run into all sorts of problems, either your horse becoming overweight, or they've got too much energy for us when we ride them, or there can be clinical issues that arise as well from that. And their conditions. So you may have two horses, same size, same weight, but one of them is thin and one of them is fat. You don't want to be feeding those the same. You want to be taking into consideration that you want to get more weight on one of those horses and you might want to reduce the weight of the other. So that's number 3. Number 4, keep to the same feeding hours every day. Horses love routine. They love to know that they're going to be fed, say at 7 a.m, at 12 noon and at 4 p.m. Or it might be only feed a bucket feed once a day, so 4 p.m. is their feed time. Or they know they get their hay nets at, say, 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. Horses like to know what they're doing. That helps them to stay in a routine and to stay relaxed and then get more from their food. Number 5, do not work hard immediately after feeding. So the stomach sits behind the lungs of the horse. So it's really important that we don't work the horse really hard straight away after food, because the lungs are going to be taking in more and more oxygen, and it's going to push the stomach. It's going to compress it, because the lungs are going to need more space within the horse's barrel. So we don't want to do that. The second reason, of course, is that if the horse is working, it's taking blood away from the stomach. So instead of using the blood in the stomach to have the food digested, it's being taken away, so it's not going to digest very well, and you run the risk of giving the horse colic. So we don't want to do that. We want to give the horse about an hour and a half. So an hour after they've finished feeding. So an hour and a half, make sure that from when you feed them, make sure you've got plenty of time to do that. Or give a smaller feed. If your feed is more fibre and it's not got a lot of starch in it, so cereal content, we will talk about all those sorts of things later on, then you can work after feeding them. Endurance horses, for instance, need to be fed during their races, because their races are quite long. So if you have more fibre based, you can work them afterwards. But certainly not if you fed them a high concentrate feed, which is the cereal and starch base, which we'll cover in a bit. Number 6, feed adequate roughage. So roughage relates to our hay, our haylage, our grass. Really important, the horse is designed to be fed fibre more than anything else. So you want to make sure that they're having a constant supply of fibre. That keeps everything working. So when we have a look at the digestive system of the horse, we want to make sure they don't get impacts in any of the system, that they don't get blockages, and there isn't any issues throughout their system. If they're not having enough roughage, they can get gaps in their intestinal tract, and that can then lead to colic and twists in the gut and things like that. So we don't want that. The other problem that you can have if you don't feed enough roughage is ulcers. So you may have heard about that recently. There's a lot of research done into ulcer cases, and a lack of roughage doesn't help there, because it doesn't stop the stomach acid. So the stomach acid continues, because unlike our stomach acid is related to kind of our anticipation of food. So when we anticipate food, we build up saliva, which then buffers the acid. Horses can't do that. They can't build saliva unless they're actually eating. So if they're not eating, they're not buffering the stomach acid. So it's really important that they have that fibre. Number 7, introduce changes of food gradually. So the horse's stomach, they have particular enzymes to deal with breaking down parts of the different foods. If you change too quickly, you can cause them stomach upsets, and that can then lead to colic and all sorts of issues there. So there's the different bacteria, the microbes that break down the food. So if they're sudden made, there won't be enough of the appropriate bacteria to break down the new type of food. So think of it like if your horse's stomach has got kind of like carrot microbes, it's like, oh, I can break down a carrot, and then if you then give that horse oats, it doesn't have any to break down the oats, so it needs to build those up. So you'd need to gradually introduce those into the diet. Lovely. Number 8, feed clean, good quality forage. Forage is another word for feed. Sometimes you'll hear forage used to relate to roughage, which is the fibrous part of the food, but forage can mean everything. So what that's saying is make sure you feed your horse clean, good quality food, which we'd all like clean, good quality food. So if you've got mouldy hay and you think, oh, well, I want it used up because I paid for it now, it's not great for the horse. So ideally, get rid of that, get some good quality, clean food for the horse. Some horses won't actually eat anything that's contaminated anyway, so your horse will just leave it and then it won't get the food that it needs. But if it's contaminated by vermin, you can actually harm your horse in trying to feed them that. So make sure it's clean. Number 9, feed something succulent every day. So succulents are things like carrots, root vegetables, those types of things, or grass, because the horse is designed to have a high moisture diet as well. If they're eating the grass all the time, grass can often itself be about 60% water, if not more. So the horse is used to taking in water from its grass and from its food. So if they're in and they're having a very dry diet like hay or chaff, those types of feeds, and even adding water to it's not going to do as much as if you add some succulents. Sometimes if you have a horse in the winter and it doesn't have any grass or anything like that, you can add feed sources that have higher water content, and we'll cover some of those when we get to ingredients. So those are our 9 rules of feeding. I will pop that up on the, I'll pop those up in the description. I'll have some links to those as well, and also to those lists that are longer as well, so there's any others you want to have a look at. And next what we're going to cover is we're going to cover types of food. So look forward to seeing you back for that. I hope you enjoyed that, and any questions, just let me know. Thank you.